Unit 1. People who do good for others. In this unit, you will learn about syllables and word stress, about differences between American and British English, about uses of the simple past and the past continuous, and practice subject and predicate. Practice making polite requests, and learn to write the opening section of a story. Now, here is a picture given. Please look at it and find out what are these people doing. Look at these 6 pictures and discuss or find out how one person is helping another. Picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, picture 4, 5 and 6. You can notice that in all of these pictures, one is trying to help the other. Look below the picture. There is another task for you. What are some other situations in which people might need? How can we help them? Take some time and think about this. Nelson Mandela was the first black president of South Africa. He is remembered today for his long struggle to bring justice to black South Africans who faced cruelty and discrimination at the hands of the whites. In 1944, Mandela, a lawyer, joined the African National Congress, the oldest black political organization in South Africa, where he became a leader of Johannesburg's youth wing of the ANC. In 1952, he became Deputy National President of the African National Congress, advocating non-violent resistance to apartheid, South Africa's institutionalized system of white supremacy and racial segregation. However, after the massacre of peaceful black demonstrators at Sharpeville in 1960, Nelson helped organize a paramilitary branch of ANC to engage in guerrilla warfare against the white minority government. In 1961, he was arrested for treason, and although acquitted, he was arrested again in 1962 for illegally leaving the country. Convicted and sentenced to 5 years at Robben Island prison, he was put on trial again in 1964 on charges of sabotage. In June 1964, he was convicted along with several other ANC leaders and sentenced to life in prison. Mandela spent the first 18 of his 27 years in jail at the brutal Robben Island prison. Confined to a small cell without a bed or plumbing, he was forced to do hard labor in a quarry. He could write and receive a letter once every 6 months, and once a year he was allowed to meet with a visitor for 30 minutes. However, Mandela's resolve remained unbroken, and while remaining the symbolic leader of the anti-apartheid movement, he led a movement of civil disobedience at the prison that coerced South African officials into drastically improving conditions on Robben Island. He was later moved to another location where he lived under house arrest. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became South African president and set about dismantling apartheid. De Klerk lifted the ban on the ANC, suspended executions, and in February 1990 ordered the release of Nelson Mandela. Mandela subsequently led the ANC in its negotiations with the minority government for an end to apartheid and the establishment of a multiracial government. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 1 year later, the ANC won an electoral majority in the country's first free elections and Mandela was elected South Africa's president. Mandela retired from politics in 1999 but remained a global advocate for peace and social justice until his death in December 2013. Let us now begin the lesson titled Hero Nelson Mandela, An End to Injustice. Nelson Mandela, after spending 27 years in prison, was released. Here is how he greeted his friends. Friends, comrades, and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom for all. Your tireless and heroic sacrifices have made it possible for me to be here today. I, therefore, place the remaining years of my life in your hands. These words welcomed hundreds of thousands of cheering black South Africans who gathered in the streets of Cape Town on 11 February 1990. They were there to salute their hero, Mandiba, as they lovingly called him, after his release from prison, where he had spent 27 years of his life. His real name was Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and his freedom marked one of the most important events in the history of South Africa, the beginning of the end of injustice, inequality, and discrimination. Nelson Mandela was born on 18 July 1918 in Umtao in South Africa. Neither of his parents ever went to school, but they ensured that Mandela did. He, like his father, had a deep sense of justice, and this quality played a key role in his later career as a political revolutionary. He was only 9 when his father died. From then onwards, it was his mother who was responsible for the well-being and education of the children. At school, his teacher, Miss Ndingnai, gave him the English name Nelson. He took a lot of interest in studies but was equally active in sports, his favorites being boxing and athletics.